guys, it's Izzy here, and today we're going to be looking at the best books of 2023. These books didn't necessarily come out in 2023, but they're the best books that I read this year. These were all 5 stars, and in my blog post I do include some honorable mentions, so if you would like to see those that didn't quite hit 5 stars, definitely check out my blog. It's linked down below in the description of this video. Let's get into it. The first 5-star that I read in 2023 was in January. I was very lucky on that state, and actually one of the first books that I started in the year because I read a short story every morning, and this was the short story collection that I read, that being Florida by Lauren Groff. This was my first Lauren Groff, and now she's an auto-buy author for me. I want to read her whole catalog. There were themes of survivalism here, which is one of my favorite topics. I love the setting of Florida. Love, love, love her writing style. It's so blunt, but at the same time so lyrical and poetic. A genre that I really struggle with reading are thrillers, mysteries, horror. It's not really my jam. So this one was a huge shock to have on my 5 stars, and that is No Exit by Taylor Adams. Just the anticipation, it had me on the edge of my seat. I felt so claustrophobic, which I'm learning is what I like to feel while reading horrors and thrillers. Is I want to feel like I can't get out, that I can't escape. There's no exit. This is honestly just so scary, and I really didn't know where it was going to go because a lot of times I predict the plot twist, and this I didn't. And I'm definitely going to have to read more Taylor Adams. I have Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is a romance. I like to read romance in February, and that's when I read this one. This is the first book in the Brown Sister trilogy. I loved the representation. That's why this gets a 5-star. Chloe does have chronic illness. That makes it difficult for her. She has anxieties about how will her partner handle that? Is she even worthy of having a partner? Can she do all these things that she once was able to do but can't do anymore because of her illness? Or at least she thinks she can't. So she makes a list for herself of things that she wants to set out to do. And I just found that so inspiring. Again, the representation was fantastic. This is my dream romance to be in a love story like this one, to find a partner like Red. I think, yeah, Redford defined somebody like him is my dream man. So come into my life, please. In this video, I am not ranking the books, but this would be my second favorite book of the year if we were doing rankings, and that is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. This was a 5-star prediction for me, and it definitely lived up to that expectation. Oh my gosh, the character work. There's so many characters. There's like 8 characters, but they're so well developed. They're all part of the same family. And that can get repetitive because they all are living in the same place. Everything, you know, had the same upbringing. The author does such a great job at making a difference with each character that they are all different. And then the setting was amazing. This raw, gritty, what America's really like. Because there is only that picturesque America's Times Square. It's the white picket fence. No, for the most part in this country, people do not live like that. And I would say a lot more live like the characters in Betty. As I said, it's raw and gritty. Again, fantastic writing. I especially love the writing of the changing seasons and how there's even a theme. The seasons are constantly changing, but we're always going to have fall. We're always going to have winter. We're always going to have spring. We're always going to have summer. Ooh, this is emotionally... It was emotional. It left me emotionally drained. After I finished this, I was like, how can I read another book? But I'm glad that I did, because we still have a lot more 5-star books to talk about. We've made it to the only nonfiction book on this list. This is a memoir. I followed along with the audiobook because the author did narrate the audiobook, and that is Love, Pamela by Pamela Anderson. She's my inspiration. If you know me, I love her. When I tell people that she's my inspiration, people always have this connotation like, oh, you must be crazy and sexual and all this. No. People often just see one thing when they look at a person and don't really look past that. If they see me, they probably think I'm a nerd geek with my glasses. I'm not all glamorous. So people will, and then like, they see Pamela, they're like, she's a blonde bimbo. No, she's not. As long as people think other people are just one-dimensional beings. But no, this was one of the most relatable books I've ever read. I wonder what her personality type is. I bet I could look it up. I would say she's an INFP, but I don't know, she might be a bit of an extrovert. I think there's a lot of cases where people are kind of a mix of the two. I'm an introvert who is trying to be an extrovert. I want to get out of my shell more, but it's very difficult. But just so relatable, so intelligent, and I'm glad that Pamela is finally getting to tell her story in her own words rather than have people, mainly men, who were a part of her life tell her story from their perspective, but we're getting it from her perspective in this one. I went a while without having another 5-star, but the next one is Us Against You by Frederick Backman. This is a sequel, so I can't tell you too much, but I loved the character work, and that's why it's gonna 5-star. It is a thick one. It made me cry. It's very rare for a book to make me cry. I think only 2 books in this stack did it, and this is the first one that did. And I was just so emotionally connected to these characters. I didn't know how I would feel about a sequel to Beartown, because Beartown I feel like was pretty set in stone, and for contemporary books you usually don't have a series. But man, oh man, if you love Beartown, pick up this one. It's a 5-star. I think it's better than the first book in the trilogy. We do have some rereads on this list, and I was hesitant to include rereads, but the first one is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. When I first read this book, because this was a reread, as I said, I gave it a 4-star, but on reread it is a 5-star. I love the character that is Evelyn, and I did tab it this time. I love her. I want to be her. I hate Celia. The atmosphere I love. I love old Hollywood. I've always been intrigued by it. This is her best written book. Maybe. Because there's another one in this stack that could compete with that. And then the plot, I think, is just so clever, and one that I don't think a lot of people would have thought of doing. And then obviously the format of it having dual timelines from Evelyn in her later years, looking back at her career as one of the most iconic figures in Hollywood. We have our only graphic novel on the list, and I guess this is, I would say historical fiction more so than nonfiction. But this is the other book that made me bawl my eyes out. I was home alone for a few days. I picked this Laika by Nick Abbasis one day, and it broke me. If you are a dog lover, this will make me cry, or make you cry. And it really was emotional to me because my dog looks just like Laika. There's a picture of the actual dog. My dog is a bigger version of that dog, but the stripe on the face, the curly tail, because that one of her nicknames meant curly tail in Russian, and my dog has a curly tail, is brown and white, has some spots. My dog has a lot of spots. Oh, it broke me, and I do not know a lot about when animals were being sent to space. I obviously know that animals have been sent to space and didn't always come back. I learned so much from this, and learned so much about like the Soviet Union and the space race and Cold War from this novel. We had another reread, which this was my 3rd time reading, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I still gave it a 5-star, and I appreciated it even more after watching the show, because the book is so much better than the show. Tens and times, I don't even know what I'm saying, thousands of times better than the show. The character work is just so much better. On the show, the characters are very one-dimensional to me, except for like 3 characters, and you know who the main 3 are. But in this, everybody gets that screen time. Everybody is developed and has their own like hope and ambitions and all of that. So definitely for character work, Daisy Jones. The final 2 now, we are going to talk about Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is the one where this might be her best writing. This one is very picturesque and cinematic. It feels like a movie to me. And out of all of her books and all, this would have been the one I would have adapted, which it is getting an adaptation on a streaming service I do not have. I will get Hulu just to watch the adaptation of the show. But again, I love just the familiar relationships, how sometimes they fall apart, and just what makes a family. And then the themes of Hollywood and nepotism, talent, because it's so prevalent to pop culture and Hollywood today, but just seeing it from a 1980s perspective. Lastly, we do have my best book of the year, my favorite book of the year, and that is The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois by Honoré Fannin Jeffers. I did follow along with the audiobook, and I definitely recommend doing the audiobook. Anytime I read articles about this book, I read it like in my head. It's in the voice of the audiobook narrators. Character work, I didn't really like our main character, but I loved reading her story so much, and I loved how we were seeing this one family from the colonial times all the way up to the years of President Obama's presidency. So we are following like 300 years of history there, and it was just so impactful. And you just get so connected to these characters. You might not even like them, as I said, but you get connected to them. Uncle Root was my favorite character. Atmosphere was absolutely amazing. It takes place mainly in Chickasetta, Georgia, which is a fictional town, but the Southern culture is so spot on. As somebody who's lived in South Carolina my whole life, this hits the nail on the head. Just so many of the characters remind me of people in my own life. The food, the ecosystem, everything. Jeffers did it. She did it. And then the writing, this was her first novel. How? I do not know. But it is so poetic. And that being said, she is a poet. Everything else that she's written has been poetry. So the writing in this definitely very poetic and lyrical, especially in these song sections, which that's the one where I hear that narrator's voice all the time. And then plot, this is my dream plot. I'm telling y'all, my absolute dream of a plot following one family, as I said, from the colonial time to like 2008. Oh my gosh, my dream. Somebody wrote my dream story here. But yes, again, this is a very dark, it's emotionally draining. And there is one part in the book where her mentor tells her, after she's doing all this historical research, sometimes you need to take a step back, take a shower, sit down for a little bit, and just take it all in and cleanse yourself in a sense, because it can be so impactful. You are reading about actual people's lives. Knowing this is historical fiction, but you have to think many people lived the lives that these characters lived, and I don't know how people survived, but they did. But this was my best and favorite book of 2023. Those were all my 5-star books of the year. Some honorable mentions. We're going to say The Vaster Wilds by Lauren Groff. We're going to say Irene Solo, When I Sing Mountains Dance, Still Life by Sarah Winman. Those are some honorable mentions. I'm not going to go into deep discussions on those books, but all these books I will include links to my reviews of them if you guys would like to check them out. And if you made it through this whole video, leave a music emoji in the comments below. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!